Mm. I think we're live now. Almost. We're a little bit late. I think we were late last week. Might have even been like a minute later this week. So I'm just trying something. My laptop doesn't feel like it's level, which is really disconcerting. You know, when like a picture's like, wow. Morning, Alyssa. Thanks as always. It's helpful to know that, well, A, that someone's watching, which is a small comfort, and also that the video is working. Um, and if anyone else is out there, feel free to say hello. It's one of those mornings. I can't get this camera in the right place. Oh, there we go, it's better. It's one of those morning. I think this is the first time it's been like really rainy on a Sunday since lockdown started. Which is funny because we did like a sunshine egg last week, but maybe we should have done it this week. Morning, Amy. Great to have you with us. Um, just trying to find our types of music. How is everyone finding the weather? Are we like pleased? There's some water for the garden. Is it nice to have a change from the sun? Or is it like it's raining? It's basically what I'm like. I'm I definitely like the sun. In fact, I made like an agreement with myself a few years ago, and because it's quite easy. I think, well, especially as a British person, it's very easy to like complain about the sun. Like, oh, it's too hot. It's too hot now. It's too hot. And also to complain when it's like cold and rainy or whatever. Like, you know, in winter, the opposite. You're like complaining about, oh, it's so cold. I just can't wait to see the sunshine again. And I think it's not very like, I know it's a very British thing to do to complain at both, but I was like, to be kind of consistent as a person, I decided that I would choose. I'm not ever going to complain about it being sunny, even if it's like 38 degrees or something. I'm like, yeah, I will live with it. But then I reserve the right to complain about like when it's raining, basically when it's not sunny. So like when it's raining, when it's cold, and then I like in my head at least I'm being consistent and not like completely hypocritical. So I don't know whether you like you complain about what Amy say. Quite like that whether when you don't have to be anywhere feels cozy inside. That's true actually. And that's actually one thing I've quite enjoyed about lockdown is not having to like worry about like organising a social life to the normal extent. It's nice just to be like, oh, you know, I've got like this week. I feel like I ought to find something to do in my evenings, so I'm not like a completely like miserable so and so. And then you're like, oh well, I can't do anything because I'm not allowed out. I'm not allowed to see people, and it's just like a bit of a not that. And yeah, I do really like socialising. I do like see my friends, but also it just takes you admin to like arrange. So yeah, if you don't have to do it, then and I've been very busy with like other things as well, like the support line that we've been doing at home church. So I'm kind of like, it's not that I've been like stuck at home with nothing to do, which I know like is kind of a privileged position to be occupied. But anyway, right, shall we do some titles? It's always a bit. I'm never quite sure where we're gonna hit the song. Timothy's. Okay. Never gets old. I always like am slightly thrilled with myself when I get it right. Oh, Amy agrees. It's nice that Amy's. It's nice not to do too much, or not to do much. Yeah. I wonder whether it like is interesting reflection on the state of modern life, where I remember people hearing something about millennials as in like kind of my generation, which well, like I think generation I kind of fall in the middle of. So like people born between so like 84. It depends on which sociologist you ask, but like 83 to like 98 or something like that, 95. it varies, but that we're really like value productivity. There's an interesting argument that I can't quite remember the details of, and I'm not sure whether I kind of agreed with it or not. But it's something to do with basically the stereotype of millennials are people who are the children of boomers, just because of the way the generations fall, and so something to do with the way the boomers experience growing up in the time period they did, like kind of post-war, and the way that their view of the world was shaped by the time they were born into, and then how that then affected how they parented us as their children as millennials. And there's some kind of point that basically we are kind of like being trained to be like productive, and so like you've got like an app for and I suppose like maybe everyone does this to some extent, but perhaps like millennials tap into it. But like excuse me, you've got like your to-do list app, and you've got like your calendar app to organise your life, and you've got like your app to like make sure you've done your exercise, and like I've got an app for which is actually really useful for cleaning. It's really so that so I keep a record of when like the last time I've like swept the kitchen was, and then and you can set it to do reminders and stuff, which I don't. But basically, it just means I can't deceive myself. It's like, oh, I think I did this like week before last. Then I check and it was like 6 weeks ago. I'm like, probably did this again. But anyway, it's another like productivity thing, and I think there's something that's not quite right about that approach to life. And I think it's something that the lockdown has kind of like thrown something through, like knife through, or like fired like a shed load of bullets into that kind of view of living. But anyway, that's quite enough philosophy for today. So I was struggling with ideas for what to do today, and then I realised that I had the perfect set of ingredients for some like fancy avocado toast with poached eggs. So that's what we're going to try. Now the first, okay, so the thing that is good. So one thing I started doing in lockdown, since I've moved back from Chateau Morris and have been doing my own shopping, because I don't have a butler to do it for me, and Melissa said boomers knew how to do things before apps or even mobiles. Yeah, and I think I don't know whether. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if it's we don't know how to do things because they did it all for us, or whether we just like our approach to. I think like boomers were just like kind of either do something or not do it, and then kind of not worry about it. Whereas I think we had this kind of obsession with like trying to do everything and trying to do everything like really well. I don't know. Anyway, so since I've been doing my own shopping, I've treated myself to like fancy bread. So I go to the like bakery section in Sainsbury's, and normally I get something that's reduced because then it's like alright. So this week I got a sourdough pave, which is like it's kind of like a pillow shaped kind of square thing. Anyway, so it feels, and it was supposed to be best before like 2 days ago, which is why I was reduced. But hey ho. So that's quite nice. So that will be Melissa's like, I'm not feeling the love for sourdough pave. I don't know what's yuck about sourdough pave. It's I don't know. It doesn't even really taste like sourdough. It's just like nice white bread. But anyway, so that would be some nice like toast, and then now this is where things start to become possibly problematic. Had an avocado, and I think I might have even like sliced this open on breakfast at Timothy's, and then like decided it was too firm, so put it back. Anyway, so I sliced this avocado open, and it was quite firm. So I was like, oh, okay, well I'll leave it, put the halves back together, and leave it to like ripen up a bit more. Unfortunately, I may have left it a bit too long. So now part of me is like, and this is actually like a not very, but I think it's like a wartime generation thing, or maybe a boomer thing of like, oh, it's fine, just like cut away the stuff that's bad, and see, there might be, further back there might be some good stuff. I think I'm being optimistic, but so it might have to not be avocado toast, it might just be toast. But we'll have a look at that. It's a shame, because it's a shame when your avocados aren't like ripe at the right time. That's a very millennial problem. So So I think we'll just do the poached eggs, and I was going to do. I don't know if you remember, I did like some number of weeks ago. I did poached eggs with the like the metal kind of cup tins. Where did I actually? No, I don't think I showed it. I can't remember if I showed it. Um, Sarah says she guarantees it will be bad. Like, this is not the like positive can-do attitude. In fact, I'm going to go for it now. I'm going to go for it now. It's not the positive can-do attitude I was looking for, Sarah. I'm gonna. I don't know if you can see this. Let me just move it so you can see my chopping board as I salvage this avocado. Right, let's see what happens. Look, I can see like green. Look at that. It's like, oh, where is it? It's fine. It's just. I think it's actually just. I'm actually kind of surprised. I was expecting to have to concede to Sarah's. I was like being optimistic here, but that looks. I think that looks all right. It's a little bit. Yeah, sometimes it's kind of goes. It does go further in, and it's kind of like got brown speckledy bits inside. But I think that is actually. I'm quite pleased with that. Yeah, look, you can see it's quite a nice cross section. You can see it is just on the surface. Possibly at the top, it might go a bit deeper because it's kind of. Yeah, it's. Wow. So there we go. Salvage the avocado. It was just surface level. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll finish that later. So, good news. 1-0. Tim, I feel like Sarah Beta, you it's not a competition, but like I beat you. But yeah. Anyway, turns out it also gives more than you see it together. Okay, Sarah May says it will still taste weird, which is fair. Like, although, like I said, I think it doesn't. I can't see because sometimes you have it where you're like, oh, can I rescue this? And it is like kind of brown and speckledy inside. But anyway, well, it'll work for the photo. That's the important thing. So to make proper poached eggs, I should put the coffee up. Well, it's a bit early, but yeah. Well, actually, we need to boil in water. Right? So. Poached eggs, use a pan. I've got this pan. I'll put a little bit of water in the bottom and turn it on. Now the trick I find is to use a lid for this. You have to get to know your own hob and your own kettle. But the dream is. So you put a little bit of water in the pan and heat that up so the pan's getting hot and you're starting to get some water hot. But then you want to boil the rest of the water because otherwise you'd take ages if you just heat your pan of water in the hot. And the trick is to, and it's always really satisfying when this happens, is just as like the water in the pan starts to bubble, the kettle clicks off and you timed it perfectly. So people are giving me some more advice about my avocado. Let me see what they say. Don't make yourself ill for the sake of avocado. I once ate a yogurt that was 3 weeks out of date and had been out of the fridge for 2 days. Safe to say I was sick the next day. Yeah, I wouldn't I feel like that's a slightly different level, Amy. I'm not going to lie. Yogurt that's been out of the fridge for 2 days. I would not touch that. How do you get to know your kettle and hob? A date. I don't know why you're involving dates in this recipe, but I actually have some dates. I think, yeah. Again, like another fancy purchase. I thought so. These were Sainsbury's Taste the Difference dates, which I don't know whether it's because I kept them in the fridge, which I wouldn't really normally do, but because it said on them to keep them in the fridge. I once had. I don't know if you ever had fresh dates, which is I suppose they're just fresh. I don't know. I think maybe just fresher, yeah. And it came in a box, I think it was then plastic inside the box. It was this kind of this kind of lump of kind of dates stuck together, but they're very soft and just really really nice. And it was I think a friend of mine from Israel, who's an Arab from Israel, which is quite unusual. I think he was an Arab Christian from Israel, which is just a funny combination. according to him. And he introduced me to these like fresh dates, and I was like, this is amazing. Like, if you only ever had like dry dates that you get at Christmas. Oh, it's happening, people, it's happening. So, I don't know if you can hear the kettle noise, but the kettle is just reaching that point where it goes quiet before it then boils. And also, I'm so excited. So the kettle is just like doing that, like about to start bubbling fluidly thing. And then the water in the pan is also bubbling away. So it'll start doing the kind of jumpy, rattly thing. So this has been like a success. I'm very pleased. So yeah, how do you get to know your kettle and hob? You just have to just experience. You know, you just have to like try it out. Combinations of boiling and kettling. Okay. I should kind of relocate so that you can see what's going on. Alright. That takes out the way. We need like a gimbal or something. The cam cable got stuck under my. I have this set of drawers I use as like a stand, so that it's at like eye level. But now, sorry everyone, the cable gets stuck underneath it, and then it's like really awkward. Right. Hello, I'm still here. So, see if we find a way to angle you so you can see the. Oh, that's good. So got the little side of my laptop and screen. Okay, right. So we've got some bubbling water. Now I think I'm going to turn it down a little bit. So the trick with proper poached eggs, I also realised I just moved the whole shebang in front of the cupboard where my eggs are. So this is not very successful at all. Right, there's my cup of tea that I was just making. Okay, got the eggs out. Right. So yeah, so the job with right, is that done? There we go. So with a poached egg, you want like the trick is to stir the water so that it's got like the central centripetal force will mean that the egg then stays in the middle. And this is just after I put vinegar in water, which I was just about to do because someone mentioned that on a previous video, and I think it did seem to work. So we've got some white wine vinegar. So I don't know how much you're supposed to put in, but there we go. Some vinegar in the water. Give it a bit of a stir. Oh, it stopped boiling now. Just put the lid back on so it'll come back up to the boil. Maybe it's a bit low. Yeah, I think you don't want it like really like fierily. Okay, I put more than a drop of vinegar in. It's more like a dash, but yeah, I do like vinegar. So I was trying to work out how this whole vinegar thing works, and I wonder whether it's similar to. I've never actually tried this, but I've seen videos of it or whatever. You can put like if you put an egg in like a jar of vinegar for a week or something, and then you take it out and like the shell kind of gets dissolved, or it just kind of gets sort of changes and becomes just like a brown layer on the outside of the skin. But then the whole egg becomes really rubbery, and I wonder if there's a similar effect that like it somehow forces the egg to stay together. I don't know. Anyway, right, we're gonna go for it. So it's really simple. Give it a bit of a stir. Crack the egg. Put it in the middle. Something like that. Looks alright. Yeah, I have a pickled poached egg. Now, I don't know how long you're supposed to do this for, because I mean the white cooks fairly instantly, and obviously you don't want overcooked. You want it still to be runny, because that's not the best part. So Any advice on how to take this out? I think I normally leave it for like a minute or so. It does. I'd say it does smell of vinegar because I definitely put too much in. Right, I'm gonna put the coffee on. Three minutes apparently if you want to run a yolk. Melissa's saying to get it out now. I think it has probably been about the right amount of time. So I'm gonna fish out. Okay. So. Oh, and this is a slotted spoon, which I think is a. I don't know. I always feel like it feels quite fancy when you have a recipe that calls for a slotted spoon. It feels like a device of sophistication. Oh, that's quite nice, isn't it? I'm quite pleased with that. There we go. So, it feels a bit rubbery, but there we go. Poached egg. Now I will have to sort out the avocado toast to go underneath this. But there we go. I think that's Amy says we're getting better at multitasking, which I'm flattered by. I don't know if I'd agree with it. Right. Well, apparently the thing with multitasking is that no one can actually multitask. It's just how good you are at switching between tasks. And I don't know why men should be not so good at that than women, but I could fully understand that it could be the case. Just gonna be back here because the light's a bit better. So, how are we do for time? It's 22 minutes. Like this might be like might actually finish like vaguely before like 10 o'clock. Right, I'm just gonna put coffee on. I was gonna talk about so the problem. It's a female spoon. Oh, the sausage spoon. Is that what you say about my like datiness about it? Fancy. Anyway, what's nice is we've got like a matching set, so you have like with and without slots. It was quite satisfying when they match up. I think it was just like from Sainsbury's. Right. So now we've Jane said earlier to use your intuition, but I just want to say hello to Jane because that's the first comment she said. So hello, Jane. Welcome. So on Sunday services, for those of you who've been watching, we've been going through the children's storybook Bible stories as a kind of partly so that we're all doing this kind of same thing together as a family, both you, children and adults, and partly because it's just quite a good way of basically doing Bible overview. And female spoons have holes, male spoons don't. I don't know if that's like I'm not sure if I want to think about that too much. Is that a biology thing? Anyway, now the problem I have is I don't have a copy of the Children's Storybook Bible, and although I think I did manage to find the contents of like the Amazon look inside preview thing, but I didn't save a copy of it, and I haven't got back to it. So I'm always a bit like I don't actually know what's coming out this Sunday, unless they normally post like the children's activity like the day before. So I'll go off that. So I think today is actually basically what I want to say. I think I was a bit preemptive last week because we did the plagues of Moses last week, and the plagues of Egypt with Moses last week. But then this week is Moses crosses the Red Sea. But last week I was talking about like the whole like being the promised land Moses thing. So I was like, I've already like gone ahead in the story and talked about Moses. So it's the catering thing. Okay. Amy says they've got a spare one. Well, I was thinking of buying my own copy, so you could save your spare one for someone who might like need it more than I do. But I appreciate the thought. If you want to drop it around sometime, then yeah, feel free. So I kind of I've talked about Moses last week. What am I going to talk about this week? So I was thinking more about Moses, and I'm just going to put the coffee away. One other thing I thought. So we've got breakfast at Timothy's. I'm afraid like the posh object feature kind of died when I left Chateau Morris because I ran out of posh objects. I did start thinking about like ordering like breakfast related gadgets and having a new one, but that could become quite expensive. I'm spending like 10, 20 quid a week on a breakfast gadget. Um, but new feature is fruit juice of the week. So last week we had, I don't know if you remember me talking about, I think the week before last, I was talking about orange juice with bits in and how I like bitty orange juice. And then this last week I had that like ruby juice, which was disappointingly like not ruby coloured. It was just looked like basically slightly off colour orange juice. This week we've got, what does it say? Fragrant orange, mango, and passion fruit juice. So which I'll pour some so you can see what it's like. I think mango juice is quite distinctive. It looks quite thick, and yeah, it's definitely like more viscous than viscous. Well, I have this constant problem. Well, not constant, but perennial problem. I can never remember which way around viscous is. Whether viscous is thick or like runny, and I just could never remember. So anyway, so I think mango juice is thicker than orange juice. Anyway. Yeah, very nice. So there we go. That's our fruit juice of the week. Now, Moses. So the thing I was thinking about was like, sometimes I think, I suppose, the question I was thinking about is like, why did God choose Moses? Like, why is he part, like, the person, viscous is thick. Okay, that's what I think. Anyone come up with a way to help me remember that? Like viscous. Because this is viscous is... Anyway, some sort of mnemonic of all of you. Fun fact, by the way, the German word for mnemonic in English, I think often we think of like an acrostic or something like that, where you're using the letters of the word to like spell out what it means, or like how to remember rhythm. How to spell rhythm is rhythm has your two hips moving. RHYTHM. Rhythm has your two hips moving. That's like a mnemonic. And so normally it means something where you're like spelling out the letters, something like that. But you can also use mnemonic in the general sense of just as something that will help you remember, a way of helping to remember something, or how to spell a word, or what a word means, or whatever it is. And it doesn't have to be like with the letters. And anyway, the German word for a mnemonic in that sense is a donkey bridge. Like I think it's an Eselbrücke, which it's donkey bridge. I don't know why. I think maybe it's like kind of like a donkey bridge. You like take you from one side of, take you from like the side of uncertainty to like the side of meaning or something. You're crossing the valley of uncertainty. I don't know. Or you have to you have to lead a donkey over a bridge. I don't know. So it's something that helps you lead you to the meaning. Anyway, I don't know, but it's called a donkey bridge, which is quite a nice mental picture. Anyway, viscous. Back to Moses. So kind of like wondering about why did God choose Moses, and I suppose the interesting thing we see with the burning bush, that Moses is like got a stutter, and so it's like, oh, why did you pick me? Like you're like, God, why did you just pick somebody who like could actually speak? And I suppose we do see later on that he kind of, God lets him like have Aaron as his mouthpiece instead. But I think there's an interesting point there that like God chooses people not necessarily because of their ability, but kind of on the principle of just like, I've chosen this person because I'm God, and I'm allowed to choose who I want, or actually perhaps because people are weak and like God chooses people so that His strength is shown in working through them. So I think there's kind of one interesting aspect to that is that like God chooses, and I think it's a helpful pattern for sometimes when we see that the right person for the job isn't always the person who's got the most skills or is the most evidently competent in a way that we think. And it doesn't mean that not to deny like the fact that we have gifts and talents that we should use, but also sometimes sometimes it's not just about like almost the kind of like pragmatic concern of like who would be notionally best at this job, but actually who is like God called to do this, and that's not always doesn't always align with their. We see that with is it with David? Is it David's older brothers of like the really handsome, like strong ones, and David's a bit scrawny. Well, yeah. Does it say that David's not particularly good looking? I can't remember anyway. But yeah, we get to see that David's chosen. You're like, this is just a stupid idea. Like, yeah, he's got all these other brothers. Well, that's part of that. To be fair, that's also partly because it's like God looks at the heart. So, say why did they pick Timothy? But something's obvious. Yeah, I think I mean that how this whole breakfast Timothy thing came about is a funny series of kind of accidents, but yeah. So I'm not necessarily the best person at cooking breakfast or talking in a coherent, direct manner, but there we go. So yeah, I think there's one interesting thought to add into the mix. Maybe just a slight tangent about how God chooses people, but I think there's one thing I was thinking about when actually Moses was the only person, I think, who had been out of Egypt. So he's come to like lead the people out of Egypt. He's the only person who, at that point when they were leaving Egypt, who's like been out before, because he went to Midian for 40 years and then came back. So I wonder whether there's something in that kind of he personifies the life that he'd had, because I think he'd lived. Yeah, he was definitely not 40 when he left Egypt, so he'd lived more of his life in Midian than he had in Egypt, unless Midian is in Egypt, but it certainly wasn't kind of like under the rule of Pharaoh. I think it is outside Egypt, but yeah, so his kind of own life is like a personified evidence that life exists beyond Egypt. It's possible to get out of Egypt because he'd done it. And I was thinking about, I think last week I mentioned this series of talks I went to at a conference with, and the guy who was like an Exodus scholar who was involved, like a consultant on the Prince of Egypt film. Melissa just, it was very kind of you, Melissa said that this is funny to people can relate, and that's what people need, real people. I think that's true. That certainly I draw great comfort from the host of like terrible Bible characters who are deeply flawed, and like there's that like rundown that you sort of see as a meme on Facebook of like Moses was a murderer, and like Abraham, like I can't remember what they all are. Like Isaac was Jacob was a deceiver, and like this whole list of like Peter betrayed Jesus. This whole list of like Bible characters of like, and basically like what David was an adulterer, all this like stuff, and like so yeah, certainly I think it's a huge comfort to us that we see that God doesn't just pick like the winners, like the kind of shiny beautiful people, but like picks ordinary people. So yeah, back to this. So this conference with this Exodus scholar who was a consultant on the film Prince of Egypt, and what I mentioned last week about, it was partly him talking about that they're freed from Egypt, but they're not just set free in a kind of abstract general sense. They're freed from something to something. So it's not just a kind of like freedom, but it's like you're freed from Egypt to go to the promised land. So they kind of added the scene with the golden calf to kind of gesture towards that, rather than just finishing of like, oh, we're free, and that's like the end of it. But anyway, something else that this so the series of talks is 4 days, 4 seminars over like the series of the week of the conference, and the title of the series was The Book of Exodus for Christians in Exodus. And the end of the first talk, which was kind of his introduction to the whole topic, and I think he kind of ran out of time, so then like did this bit very quickly, which was funny because it seemed like such a deep and big point. But he basically said that the Book of Moses was written written by Moses while they were in exile in the desert, I think is what he was saying, so that basically people would know. Did I say the Book of Moses? The Book of Exodus. Although interestingly, in German, the first 5 books of the Bible are called the books of Moses. Like so, Exodus is like the second book of Moses, or like two Moses, as we might call it in English. Um, but yeah, the book of Exodus was written so that people would know who is this Moses guy, who is our leader, like, and why should we keep following him, like. And I suppose one of the things we see in Exodus is that the burning bush, he is like called by God to lead people out of Egypt. If you're like an Israelite grumbling in the desert because you're a bit fed up with manna, eating the same thing every week, and you're like, oh, it was better in Egypt, even though it wasn't, and you're like, who is this Moses guy? Like, why should we follow him? Then you've got like, boom, Book of Exodus. This is why you should follow Moses. This is who he is. And he said, just as for the Israelites in the desert needed to know who Moses was and why they should keep following him, we as Christians, as people kind of in Exodus, in exile from like, we haven't yet reached the new creation, we've not yet reached kind of home, we're like exiles in this world, which is what I think Hebrews opens and talks about. We similarly have like the Gospels, or the New Testament, all kind of the whole Bible really, but to answer the question, who is this Jesus and why should we keep following him? Like, we have the same kind of question, and so you drew some really nice parallels. And I don't know whether he said this. I don't think he did, because it feels like it was an original thought to me, although I'm sure someone else has thought about it. But I suppose there's then a parallel there too with like this idea. Moses has been out of Egypt. He's been out and has come back to lead his people out. And because he knows that he's gone beyond, he knows it's possible to be out of Egypt, to escape from Egypt. And I suppose kind of you could draw a parallel with Jesus. Like, Jesus is the one who's been through death and beyond and out the other side, and then we see that he comes back. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, like resurrection. Yeah, definitely comes back. Resurrection comes back, and so we could be confident that and the Bible I can't remember where it is, but the Bible definitely draws this link about Jesus' death and our, like, we could be confident of the life beyond death because there's been a person who's been there and come back and told us, and so we could like follow him, and we know that it exists, that there is life beyond death, and so maybe there's a parallel there for Moses and the Egyptians, that Moses was evidence that it was possible to get out of Egypt, and so he was in part for that reason the right person to lead his people out. But I think it's always the same. Is that lots of things boil down to that question? Is like, who is this person I'm following? And I have this, I think, all the time in life, in whatever spheres of life whatever areas of life we have, whether it's like your boss at your workplace, like, who is this person, and like, why should I? Who is this man or woman, and why should I trust them and work for them and kind of follow them and follow their vision for this job? Or like, who's my pastor, and why should I trust them and like keep being part of this church and keep serving and keep following them? And I think lots of questions that people have about people who aren't Christians have about kind of Christian faith or Christian life or Christian world, actually, when you get down to the bottom of it, boil down to a question of like, who is this God and why should I trust him, or why can I trust him? And I suppose the great news is for the Israelites, they have the book of Moses, Exodus, to tell them who Moses was and why they should trust him, keep following him, which is ultimately really a question of God and why they should trust Moses, because they should trust God because God has chosen Moses. And we have the whole Bible to tell us about God, but especially God has revealed in Jesus in the New Testament to tell us who the Bible says Jesus is the full representation of God, and so we can see it all there. To answer that question, like, who is this God, and why should I trust him, and why should I follow him? Well, look at Jesus, and if you find him worthy of your trust and worthy of following, then that's your answer. So Melissa said like egg will be rank. I'm saying this every week. Melissa's always like, "Oh, Tim, you made this nice food. Like, you should eat it." And I'm always like, "Well, I've got to do." I don't. For those of you who don't know, I do a photo of my breakfast on my Facebook, which is where this whole thing started. And so I have to like I can't eat it straight away because I need to put the rest of it together. And then, I mean, it would be better if I like got up a bit earlier and then prepared the rest of my breakfast. And then just did the last bit so I could then eat it as soon as I finish. But I'm like I'm not that kind of person. So anyway. Um, uh, yeah, maybe I should do my talk first and then cook. I did kind of think about trying to do both at once, but I can't multitask. So yeah, there's lots to be developed on this format. But I think we'll stop there so I can get on and eat my egg. I only cooked one egg, even though I wanted two, because I was like, well, at least the second one won't be. I'll do that in the appropriate time so that it's not rank. But so thanks for joining me this week, dear watchers. It's time to say goodbye. And so it's time to plunge the coffee. Great. Thanks very much for joining me. I hope you have a good week despite the rain. And hopefully it'll get sunny again soon. And I'll see you next week. Bye.